Welcome to all. I am Priscilla Daissy. Today we are going to see an introduction to literary theories. The objective of this slide is to know about what literary theory is, traditional literary criticism, formalism and new criticism, Marxism and critical theory, structuralism and post-structuralism, new historicism and cultural materialism. Let's see what literary theory is. Literary theory, sometimes designated critical theory or theory, are now undergoing transformation into cultural theory within the discipline of literary studies, can be understood as the set of concepts and intellectual assumptions on which rests the work of explaining or interpreting literary texts. Literary theory refers to any principles derived from internal analysis of literary texts or from knowledge external to the text that can be applied in multiple interpretive situations. All critical practice regarding literature depends on an underlying structure of ideas in at least two ways. Theory provides a rationale for which constitute the subject matter of criticism, the literary and the specific aims of critical practice, the act of interpretation itself. For example, to speak of the unity of Oedipus the king explicitly invokes Aristotle's theoretical statements on poetics. To argue, as does Chinua Achebe, that Joseph Conrad's heart of darkness fails to grant full humanity to the Africans it depicts, is a perspective informed by a post-colonial literary theory that presupposes a history of exploitation and racism. Let's see traditional literary criticism. Academic literary criticism prior to the rise of new criticism in the United States tended to practice traditional literary history, tracking influence, establishing the canon of major writers in the literary periods, and clarifying historical context and allusions within the text. Literary biography was and still is an important interpretive method in and out of the academy. Versions of moral criticism, not unlike the Lewis school in Britain, and aesthetic criticism were also generally influential literary practices. Perhaps the key unifying feature of traditional literary criticism was the consensus with the academy as to both the literary canon and the aims and purpose of literature. Let's see formalism and new criticism. Formalism is, as the name implies, an interpretive approach that emphasizes literary form and the study of literary devices within the text. The work of the formalist had a general impact on the later developments in structuralism and other theories of narrative. Formalism, like structuralism, sought to place the study of literature on a scientific basis through objective analysis out of the motives, devices, techniques, and other functions that comprise the literary work. And what's Marxism and critical theory? Marxist literary theories tend to focus on the representation of class conflict as well as the reinforcement of class distinctions through the medium of literature. Marxist theories use traditional technique of literary analysis but subordinate aesthetic concerns to the final social and political meanings of literature. Marxist theorists often champion authors sympathetic to the working classes and authors whose work challenges economic inequalities found in capitalist societies. And what is structuralism and post-structuralism? Like the new criticism, structuralism sought to bring to literary studies a set of objective criteria for analysis and a new intellectual rigor. Structuralism can be viewed as an extension of formalism in that both structuralism and formalism devoted their attention to matters of literary form, that is structure, rather than social or historical content, and that both bodies thought were intended to put the study of literature on a scientific, objective basis. Structuralism relied initially on the ideas of Swiss linguist Ferdinand de Saussure. Like Plato, Saussure regarded the signifier as arbitrary and unrelated to the concept, the signified to which it referred. Let's see new historicism and cultural materialism. New historicism, a term coined by Stephen Greenblatt, designates a body of theoretical and interpretive practices that began largely with the study of early modern literature in the United States. New historicism in America had been somewhat anticipated by the theorists of cultural materialism in Britain, which, in the words of their leading advocate Raymond Williams, describes the analysis of all forms of signification, including quite centrally writing within the actual means of conditions of their production. Both new historicism and cultural materialism seek to understand literary texts historically and reject the formalizing influence of previous literary studies, including new criticism, structuralism, and deconstruction, all of which in varying ways privilege literary texts and place only secondary emphasis on historical and social context. Thank you for watching my video.